going on, guys? Got one more breakdown for UFC 270 before I move on to the DFS analysis. And I'll say real quick, in that video, I will do, it's kind of like quick picks, but a little more hands-on. I'll do breakdowns for every fight that I didn't break down in an individual video. I'll at least give like a 3 to 5 minute little preview on it and go over how I think it's going to go. So anything I didn't break down, if you want to see what I think, it'll be in the DFS video. But enough of that. For this bout, we got lightweight Matt Frevola taking on Genaro Valdez. It'll be Valdez's UFC debut. Another interim gym guy with Brandon Moreno and Michael Morales also on this card. But I will start with Valdez. Coming off a wild and weird fight on the Contender Series where Patrick White came out, didn't have a mouthpiece, and I believe Valdez was a huge favorite in that spot. And he really just emptied the tank and stupidly in the first round. He was having success. He was driving for a lot of takedowns, exerting a lot of energy doing that. Should point out this guy's 10-0, but he's 30 years old, so it's not like he's super young or anything. But yeah, he expends energy on these takedowns, gets them. His ground and pound isn't super heavy, but he does have a tendency to just kind of open up. We've only got 10 fights from this guy. But I have seen that he will just open up, not super heavy, but it kind of just drains his gas tank, if anything, if he doesn't get the finish. But White ends up coming back and midway through the first round, and they both look exhausted. Valdez looks even more exhausted, though, and he's just throwing these looping shots, just so tired, just no real intent or aim behind them, just wildly throwing, getting tagged. But he does have a chin, and he stays in there, and I thought he was exhausted, but then he lands a beautiful counter left, follows it up with an overhand right, knocks him out. Great knockout, but I will say that White's mouthpiece fell out, so his mouth wasn't open, but it wasn't clenched either. So I wonder if that had to do with it, but it can't be taken away from the grit that Valdez had in that one. He's definitely got some power in his hands. In the Mexican regional scene, this guy had some decent wins, all first round finishes from what I've seen from him. But he has only 10 fights, and against a lot of guys who was just we got 0-0, 0-0, 1-0, 1-0, 0-2. And then with Lux Fight League, he did have a couple decent opponents, but Miguel Arizmendi, common opponent with Michael Morales, but the level of competition, we just don't know what we got yet. I will say that I put stock in Mexican regional scene. It's just you got to look at which regions are big on just fighting culture in general, and Mexico's definitely that. Same thing with the Northeast. There's a bigger talent pool in the Northeast U.S. than let's say, I don't want to say Southwest because that's not true, but there are regions in the U.S. that aren't as big on combat sports, don't have as many prospects, but even though it's lower level guys we don't know much about, I put stock in it, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, we just don't know a whole lot about Valdez. His cardio seems a little suspect. These guys have very similar styles. I'll just transition into Frevola. Had a decent amount of UFC fights so far. He's been in some really fun scraps. He's a guy the fans like a lot, especially when he fights on his home turf in New York. Trains a lot with Sarah Longo, but he's coming off that brutal knockout against Terrence McKinney. He was brutally knocked out in the first round before by Polo Reyes, which is, against McKinney it's excusable. That guy's a killer, but Polo Reyes, it was disappointing to say the least. Against Lando Veneta, it gets a majority draw there, but I would give him that fight. Really greasy fight with Luis Pena, where I actually thought that Pena won. I know we don't like Luis Pena for obvious reasons, but we got to break it down according to how it weighs on this fight, and I thought that Frevola lost that fight. He did have a win over Jalen Turner that's aged well, and then against Arman Tsarukyan, he just got dominated, and he did a lot of things well. He had a lot of great scrambles, but it was just Tsarukyan was just better everywhere, better jab, way better grappling transitions. He was always one step ahead, even though Frevola would scramble out or defend something really well, but Tsarukyan would just be one step ahead, and that's pretty much how that fight goes. And then, the McKinney fight was the last fight, so he's coming off that absolutely brutal knockout, one of the faster, I believe it's the fastest UFC debut knockout, and it's one of just the faster knockouts, period, at 7 seconds. So that is a big factor. We gotta wonder how Frevola is going to be coming off such a brutal knockout, but stylistically, I think he's always had good wrestling. Doesn't always go to it when he should, but I do think he has good wrestling. He's got great cardio. He always fights a good third round, But on the feet, I think there's things to be desired. Like, he's I want to call him durable, but at the same time, his chin is suspect. If that makes any sense, like he's tough, but I just wonder he's taking a lot of damage in a lot of these fights against Veneta took a lot of damage against Pena, took a lot of damage, and he's got a couple brutal first round knockouts. And he's pretty loopy with his punches, leaves a lot of room to get countered. He will step in and punctuate some of these combinations with leg kicks or punches. Like, he'll extend the combo to like 4 or 5 strikes. But I don't know. There's a lot of empty movement in his striking, a lot of big swings and misses. And if Valdez had clean counter striking, just documented clean counter striking, I would be all over Valdez in this spot. I just think that's the path to beating Frevola. He can get countered. He's a little hittable, and I just think all around he's a better wrestler than striker, but he tends to strike a little bit more. And I just wonder, he's had so much damage in these fights that you got to wonder where the chin's at. And so for this one, I haven't picked a lot of underdogs, but I do like the chances for Genaro Valdez, and I went back and forth on this one. Money was trending in a little bit his way yesterday, at least here on FanDuel, but the money's coming back in on Frevola. He's almost a 2-1 favorite, and that's pretty much what it comes down to for me. I mean, on one hand, we got a contender series guy, not a lot of competition faced. He's 30 years old, 10-0, but I do like his durability. He does seem to have power. I think his striking's just a little bit cleaner than Frevola's, and I definitely think that Frevola has a grappling advantage in this fight, though, and if he goes to it, I think he'll have success, but we just don't know too much about Valdez's defensive grappling. I know that Frevola has good defensive grappling, good sub game. He keeps himself out of danger from relentless ground and pound. So on the ground, I'd give the edge to Frevola, but I just worry about that chin, and it's more just from a value standpoint. Like, I'm not gonna bet. I'm not gonna make a straight wager at all on Valdez, honestly, but I'm gonna use it as like a flyer, just like part of some lottery ticket parlays, something like that, and then Valdez inside the distance at plus 220 is worth a look, but I don't think it's enough value to really sweeten the pot too much for me. If I do bet this fight either straight, which is very doubtful because I think I have my bets locked in, but if I do use it in a flyer parlay, I'll have that in the bet video later today. So thanks for watching, guys. Sure, subscribe and take it easy.